There are times in life when we find ourselves drawn away from the world, almost as if we're being pulled inward by a force we can't quite identify. It may come in a moment of change, a time of loss, or simply during those quiet spaces when we are alone with our thoughts. This isolation may feel strange, uncomfortable, even unsettling. But perhaps instead of fighting it, what if we tried to see it as a preparation period, a gift of time meant for something deeper? You see, the universe has a unique way of putting us exactly where we need to be, even if that place is somewhere we never planned to go. Isolation gives us something most of us spend our lives craving, yet rarely find a chance to truly connect with ourselves. Without the usual bustle of the outside world, without the distractions, we have an opportunity to step back and see ourselves for who we really are. It's as though the universe is saying, pause, take a breath, look within, and when we do, we may find truths, insights, even strengths we didn't know existed. Isolation then becomes a process of refinement. It's as if we're being stripped down to our essentials, guided to release what no longer serves us, to let go of anything that's only weighed us down. At first it's uncomfortable. It's like standing in front of a mirror without the usual masks and pretenses. But this discomfort is part of the preparation. It's part of what strengthens us. As we confront ourselves, as we sit with our own company, we begin to see the patterns we've woven into our lives, the habits, the beliefs, the fears. We see, maybe for the first time, just how much we've allowed the world's expectations to shape us. And this realization, however unsettling it might be, is also incredibly liberating. Because now, in this space, there is the freedom to redefine, to recreate, to begin again. Now, in this place of solitude, you start to notice the shifts. Maybe it's subtle at first, like a quieting of the mind or a softening of old anxieties. But as you spend more time in this inner space, you begin to realize that this period of isolation is doing something remarkable. It's grounding you, strengthening you from the inside out. You're becoming acquainted with parts of yourself you may have neglected, passions you've overlooked, dreams you set aside. You're getting to know the person you are beneath the roles you play, the one who exists beyond the labels and the expectations. The world is a busy, noisy place, and we are constantly pulled in 1,000 directions, constantly trying to meet the demands of others, to live up to ideals that aren't always ours. But isolation is different. It doesn't demand anything from you. Instead, it allows you to just be. It gives you space to rest, to reflect, to listen to that inner voice that is so easily drowned out. And in that quiet, in that stillness, there's a kind of clarity that emerges. You start to see not just who you are, but who you could be. This time of isolation becomes a cocoon, a sanctuary in which the foundation of something new and beautiful is being laid. So, if you find yourself in a season of solitude, don't rush through it, don't try to escape it. Trust that it has a purpose, trust that you're being prepared for something beyond what you can see right now. Allow yourself to be shaped by it, to grow within it. This period may not make sense to you today, but one day you'll look back and realize that every moment spent alone was a step towards becoming the person you were meant to be. And remember, the universe knows exactly what it's doing, even when we don't. In those times of isolation, when it feels like life is quiet and the world is moving on without you, it's easy to question yourself. You might wonder if you've taken a wrong turn, or if you've taken a wrong turn, or if you've somehow drifted off course. But here's a thought: maybe this moment, this seeming pause, is exactly where you're meant to be. Perhaps the universe is orchestrating this period as a way to strip away the noise, the distractions, and even the opinions of others, so you can finally hear your own voice clearly. Isolation can be a powerful teacher, and when we embrace it, we may find it's preparing us for something greater than we ever imagined. Think about how much of our lives we spend trying to fit in, trying to follow the scripts that society has written for us. We're taught what success should look like, how we're supposed to act, and even what dreams we should aspire to. But in isolation, those scripts don't hold the same weight. Without an audience to perform for, without anyone to impress, we're left with something raw and unfiltered, our own truth. And it's here, in this quiet space, that we get to ask ourselves some of the most fundamental questions. Who am I beneath the roles I play? What is it that I truly value? What kind of life do I want to create for myself? Isolation lets us reconnect with our inner compass, that quiet yet powerful sense of knowing that resides within all of us. When we're constantly surrounded by others, it's easy to lose sight of our own path because we're so busy accommodating everyone else's expectations. But alone we have the freedom to explore what genuinely resonates with us, and we have the space to consider the life we want to lead, not the life we've been conditioned to pursue. This time of solitude becomes an invitation to return to our essence, to reacquaint ourselves with the dreams and desires that are truly ours. It's a process of peeling back layers, of recognizing the difference between what's essential and what's simply noise. You start to notice the parts of yourself that have been shaped by others' opinions, the fears that have been handed down by society, the beliefs that may no longer serve you. And in that awareness, there's a liberation, a chance to let go. You begin to see that some of the limitations you've placed on yourself aren't even yours. They're the echoes of voices from the past, the remnants of a life lived for others. And now, in this period of isolation, you get to choose which parts of that life you want to keep and which parts you're ready to release. This process is rarely easy, and sometimes it's uncomfortable. It can feel like a kind of shedding, a loss of familiar identities and habits. But within that discomfort is the potential for profound transformation. You're making space for something new, something that aligns with the truest parts of who you are. And the beauty of it is, once you've gone through this process, once you've made contact with that inner knowing, you'll find it much harder to get lost in the noise again. You'll recognize when something doesn't resonate, when a path doesn't feel right, and you'll have the courage to choose differently. So if you're in this place of solitude, if you feel like life has stripped away the noise for a reason, trust the process. This time is allowing you to strip away everything that isn't you, so you can emerge more authentically than ever. There is strength in that kind of authenticity, a strength that doesn't come from validation or approval, but from knowing who you are at your core. In moments like these, the universe may be guiding you to your most genuine self. Embrace it, and when you emerge, you'll find a clarity and conviction that can't be shaken by anything or anyone. During these times of isolation, it's easy to feel adrift as though you're alone on a vast, open sea with no one around to anchor you. But what if this solitude is actually a unique opportunity, an invitation to learn how to trust yourself more deeply than ever before? In the presence of others, we often rely on their feedback to gauge if we're on the right path. But when we're alone, we're left with the only true guide we've ever really needed, our own inner compass. Isolation becomes an exercise in self-trust, a reminder that we carry within us an innate wisdom that can guide us if only we allow ourselves to listen. When we're in solitude, removed from the influence of others, we start to realize that most of our lives are spent looking outside ourselves for answers. We've been taught to turn to experts, to books, to society, and to the opinions of those we admire to find direction. And while there's value in learning from others, we run the risk of silencing our own voice in the process. In isolation, there's no one to tell us what's right or wrong, no one to steer us one way or the other. This is where the magic lies. It's an opportunity to tune into the quiet guidance of your intuition, that deep sense of knowing that speaks not in words, but in feelings, instincts, and whispers. Think of this period as a chance to cultivate an intimate relationship with your own intuition. When you take a step in one direction and feel that subtle resistance, that feeling in your gut that says, no, this isn't it, you begin to recognize the language of your inner self. Likewise, when you feel that quiet excitement, that spark of energy around a choice or direction, you learn what it feels like to be aligned with your true self. These signals are like gentle nudges from your deeper self, guiding you toward what is most in line with who you really are. Isolation teaches us that we don't always need validation from others to make decisions. We often seek approval or affirmation as a way to avoid responsibility for our choices. If someone else approves, then it must be the right choice, and if it isn't, we can blame them. But in solitude, there's no one else to rely on or to shoulder the blame. The choices we make come entirely from us, and so does the accountability. This can feel uncomfortable, even unnerving, but it's also deeply empowering. It teaches us that we are capable of trusting ourselves and making decisions that are right for us, even when they don't align with what others might think. This period of isolation is an initiation of sorts into self-trust. You are learning to trust your inner compass, to follow the path that feels authentic to you, even if it doesn't make sense to anyone else. And as you deepen this trust in yourself, you begin to realize that you're no longer searching outside yourself for answers. You are no longer dependent on anyone else to confirm your worth or validate your path. You become anchored in your own sense of self, and that's a freedom unlike any other. So if you find yourself feeling alone, remember that this solitude is not a punishment, but a gift. It's the universe saying you are enough. Trust in yourself, and you'll find your way when you emerge from this time. You'll have a strength and clarity that can only come from within. And the beautiful thing about this kind of strength is that it can't be shaken, no matter what challenges you face or who may come into your life. In the end, you'll know that you don't need to rely on anyone else to tell you who you are or where you're going. You have your own inner compass, and it will guide you if only you let it. In isolation, we're often forced to confront the full range of our inner world, the good, the bad, and everything in between. It's a time when all the thoughts, feelings, memories, and even fears we've managed to distract ourselves from tend to rise to the surface. And while that may sound overwhelming, there is a profound gift hidden in facing these inner currents. When we sit with ourselves in stillness without trying to run from what arises, we begin to see these emotions and thoughts for what they are, just passing clouds, shifting moods, waves that rise and fall. We learn that we are not defined by any single feeling or thought that enters our mind. In these quiet moments, when there's no one else around to divert our attention, we start to see patterns, thoughts that repeat, feelings that linger, stories we tell ourselves over and over. We might notice that certain memories evoke strong emotions, or that certain worries seem to surface again and again. By sitting with these thoughts without judgment, we can start to observe them from a distance. It's like watching clouds drift across the sky. They're there, but they don't define the sky itself. We begin to understand that these thoughts and feelings are simply visitors passing through. This realization that our thoughts and feelings are temporary is one of the great revelations that can emerge from solitude. So much of our suffering comes from clinging to certain emotions or identities, believing, for instance, that because we feel lonely now, we are somehow inherently alone, or because we feel anxious, we must be a fearful person. But when we observe these thoughts in isolation, we begin to notice that they change. They arise, linger, and then fade. A moment of anxiety can transform into peace, a flash of sadness into calm, without us doing anything to make it happen. When you see these emotions and thoughts as fleeting, you start to feel a sense of spaciousness around them. You realize you don't have to be swept away by every wave that comes. You can sit anchored in yourself, and watch each wave rise and fall without needing to react or define yourself by it. This is the essence of resilience, the ability to experience the full spectrum of life's highs and lows without being overcome by them. Now, there's a curious thing that happens when you develop this resilience. Your relationship with discomfort changes. You stop fearing emotions like sadness, loneliness, or uncertainty. You see them as simply parts of the human experience, neither good nor bad, just aspects of the ebb and flow of life. And when you're no longer afraid of feeling these emotions, you find that they lose their hold on you. They're no longer the storm that you must avoid at all costs. They're simply passing weather, sometimes intense, but never permanent. What's more, this inner resilience brings a profound sense of freedom. You're no longer at the mercy of every shift in your internal weather. You're able to face challenges, setbacks, and even heartbreak with a groundedness that comes from knowing that in time these feelings too shall pass. This ability to witness your thoughts and emotions without getting caught up in them gives you a kind of inner stability, a calm that remains even in the midst of turmoil. When you emerge from isolation, you take this newfound resilience with you. You'll find that you don't react as quickly or as intensely to the ups and downs of life. You've developed a capacity to weather change, to hold space for whatever comes your way, without letting it shake your sense of self. It's a strength that comes not from avoiding discomfort, but from having faced it and realized that it holds no lasting power over you. And so, when you find yourself alone, remember this solitude is not an empty void to be filled, but a sacred space in which to meet yourself fully. And through meeting yourself, you learn that you are not the fleeting thoughts or feelings that pass through you. You are the awareness beneath them, steady, unshaken. When we spend time in isolation, we have an opportunity to reconnect with the world in a way that is remarkably freeing. It may seem paradoxical, but through solitude, we begin to perceive the world in a more open, unbiased way. In the stillness, the distractions fade, the mental chatter quiets, and what we're left with is a pure, uncluttered awareness. You might notice that without others around, there's less need for judgment or evaluation. We're not constantly weighing, comparing, or classifying our experiences as good or bad, right or wrong. Instead, we're simply observing, experiencing things as they are. The boundaries we so often draw between ourselves and everything else start to soften. You realize that your thoughts, the sounds outside, the rustling of the trees, even the sensation of your breath, these aren't separate from you. They're simply parts of one continuous flow of experience. This understanding begins to open you up to a deeper, more connected sense of reality. It's as if the walls that typically divide you from the world around you dissolve, and in their place you find a sense of unity. A feeling that you're not separate from life, but an inseparable part of it. Every breath, every heartbeat, every moment of awareness connects you to something beyond yourself. In this stillness, you begin to realize that the essence of you is not something isolated or solitary, it's part of the whole. Now, here's something powerful about this experience. Once you've touched that sense of unity, even in a small way, you no longer feel compelled to resist or avoid life's challenges. Now, you don't cling to the highs or resist the lows with the same intensity, because you understand that every experience, every emotion is part of the totality of life. There's a sense of peace in knowing that nothing is truly out of place or out of balance. The world isn't out to get you, it's simply unfolding in all its complexity, and you are a part of that unfolding. This perspective profoundly changes how you interact with the world when you step back into it. You no longer feel the same urgency to control outcomes, to manipulate situations, or to shield yourself from discomfort. You understand that just as you're a part of everything, everything is a part of you. This makes it easier to meet life with an open heart and an open mind, trusting that ultimately you're supported by something much larger than yourself. And that openness allows you to engage with the world in a way that's truly free. You're no longer burdened by the need to prove yourself, to compete, or to validate your existence through external means. You're content, not because you have everything figured out, but because you've touched a place within yourself that's beyond fear, beyond doubt. You've seen that your worth, your essence, doesn't depend on anything outside of you. Through isolation, we come to understand that life in all its forms is simply flowing, and we are part of that flow. You are not separate from the birds, the wind, the sunlight, or the people around you. And when you carry that understanding back into the world, it frees you to live more openly, more generously. You can face challenges with courage, meet others with compassion, and move through life with a profound sense of peace. So remember, when you find yourself alone, embrace it as a time to reconnect with the deeper unity of life. And when you do step back into the world, know that you carry that unity with you. It's there to remind you that you're not alone, and you're not separate, you're part of everything, and everything is part of you. And in that knowing, you find a freedom beyond words. As we move through life, we often try to seek comfort in others. We look to family, friends, mentors, and partners for validation, affirmation, and support. And this is natural. We're social beings, drawn to connection. But sometimes, life has a way of placing us in situations where we find ourselves alone, without the familiar support we once leaned on. Perhaps this is the universe's way of asking us to look within, to find a strength that doesn't rely on anyone else. In these moments, the universe might be isolating us not to punish us, but to remind us that the truest strength and clarity come from within. When you're alone, without the noise of other people's opinions and expectations, you get a chance to hear your own inner voice, maybe for the first time. This isn't the voice of the ego, filled with judgments and comparisons. No, it's a quieter, deeper voice. It's the voice that simply observes, that is simply present. And in that presence, you begin to discover something extraordinary, the realization that you are complete as you are. It's a powerful experience to sit alone and feel that you don't need anyone else to make you whole. You don't need anyone's validation to feel worthy, and you don't need anyone's approval to feel that you belong. This isn't a denial of the importance of relationships, but rather a deep understanding that at your core, you are complete just as you are. This realization can be transformative. You begin to see that you don't need to chase after people, seeking their acceptance or affection. You don't need to alter yourself, hiding parts of who you are or amplifying others just to fit someone else's idea of you. You realize that the only approval that truly matters is your own. When you find yourself alone, you get a chance to see yourself without the distortion of others' opinions, without the filters of society's expectations. You meet yourself in a way that is raw and real. And in doing so, you find a freedom that no one else can give you and no one else can take away. This freedom allows you to enter into relationships from a place of true wholeness. You are not seeking others to complete you, rather, you're drawn to connect, to share, and to experience companionship without attachment. When you don't need someone to validate you, you're able to approach relationships with an open heart and an open mind. You become less inclined to react defensively, to seek control, or to mold yourself into something you're not. Instead, you bring your authentic self to each encounter, offering others the freedom to be their authentic selves as well. Imagine the strength in this. Imagine the peace that comes with knowing that, regardless of who comes or goes, you are grounded within yourself. You are no longer driven by the fear of abandonment or the desire to cling to others. You know that you are enough, and that knowing gives you the courage to let others be themselves without trying to hold on too tightly. When the universe isolates you, it's giving you a gift, a chance to uncover this strength and self-reliance. It's giving you a space to reconnect with your inner essence, to discover the peace that lies within. And when you emerge from this period of solitude, you'll do so with a new understanding, a new confidence. You'll know that you can stand alone, not as a sign of rejection, but as a mark of self-discovery. And when you do choose to connect with others, it will be out of a desire to share your wholeness, rather than to fill a void. So if you find yourself alone, don't despair. Embrace it. This solitude might just be the universe's way of leading you back to yourself, back to the realization that everything you need is already within you. When you understand that, you'll step into the world with a sense of freedom that no one can ever take from you.